Officially, welcome to the Earth Sciences and Paleobiology Interest Group meeting of the TADWIG 2025 working sessions. Was there moderator stuff I was supposed to say for this? I missed that if so.
Yes. The so this I got so I sent the email. So,
Sorry.
um, this will assume this is going to be public. So if you want your camera off, you can. And then we'll get to we're also going to mention when we meet and how the meetings sort of work and these kind of logistics, but we'll get to that because we're sort of hashing this. But that's all.
Okay, thanks, Ben.
Sure.
I'm gonna share my screen. Oh, sorry, 1 second. I didn't have this as prepared as I thought I did. Okay. Before I share my screen, we have like a really rough, not much detail, shared notes document for today. Mostly what we will use this for is for you to provide us with information. So here's the link for that. And then, okay. Okay. Like I said already, welcome to the Earth Sciences and Paleobiology Interest Group meeting. This is a long-standing interest group in TADWIG, but has had many periods of being somewhat dormant, including recently. So this is the first meeting after a few years of being inactive. I'm Holly Little. I'm the informatics manager here at the Natural History Museum of the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. in the U.S. Ben, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. And I'm Ben Norton. I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina, an independent, and I'm a data specialist.
And we are the newly appointed co-conveners of the Earth Sciences and Paleobiology Interest Group as of September of last fall. But again, only actively starting to do things now, although Ben is very active with some of the task groups within our interest group. So for today, for this working group meeting, our plan is to just do overview of what the interest group is, our objectives, our proposal to all of you of how we'd like to move forward with the interest group, but we want to have some discussion about that with everybody and have your input as well. Show you a few ways that you can continue to participate with us, and then also give updates on related efforts to this interest group. So for the objectives of the Earth Sciences and Paleobiology interest group, quickly, the structure of it, if you're not familiar with TADWIG interest groups, they're really ways for us to organize community efforts around particular areas of work within TADWIG. This particular one has gone through a couple of different iterations. It started out as just paleobiology and then grew into having this larger remit with the earth sciences and paleobiology about 7 or so years ago, I think. And then within an interest group in TADWIG, you can have task groups. And those are really concerted efforts to get a particular path of work completed. And then it runs through the interest group through the approval process within the TADWIG domain. Do you want to add anything to that, Ben?
No, it's good.
Or Erica? So for Earth Sciences and Paleobiology interest group particularly, kind of the main objectives that we see for this group are really around building out community coordination and knowledge sharing for efforts across our domains in the earth sciences and paleobiology. So there's not necessarily specific work that the interest group is doing, but we see this as a mechanism for ensuring that we have alignment and an ability to communicate across our communities and shared efforts within the domain of having really good data and support for earth sciences and paleobiology information. So coordinating work, facilitating and expanding the implementation and applicability of TADWIG standards. I'm sure all of you are very familiar with some of the challenges that come with trying to use Darwin Core or ABCD if you're trying to mobilize data about paleo specimens or earth science specimens. So this group should be a resource to you to help with that process, or if there needs to be clarification or a change within TADWIG to some of the standards, this group can be mechanisms to help make those requests or help to push the work to make those changes. We also want, as part of that, want to be able to create resources that help with those implementation challenges by improving documentation, providing examples, and developing other things as needed. Anything you want to add, Ben?
No, that's good.
You can just jump in. I'll stop asking you.
Okay.
So to kind of fulfill that objective, what Ben and I are proposing as we reboot the interest group, is we'd like to have quarterly meetings over Zoom, very similar to the one that we're having today, to help have that information exchange or to discuss any new developments within the TADWIG space and related spaces. In the future, so for this working group session, we're only having the one meeting, which is not ideal for many people to be able to attend because of time zones. So in the future, for the quarterly meetings, we'll try to have a East group and West group so that we can make sure we cover all time zones and make it more possible for a larger group of people to attend. What we'd like to talk to you about now, and I will stop sharing my screen so that we can all talk amongst ourselves for a few minutes, is if you have things you'd like to get out of this interest group or things you'd like to see the interest group do, and how you think this could be a resource to you, particularly as you're navigating the TADWIG space and data standards and mobilization of earth sciences and paleo data. And I think I would be interested to know who hasn't been a member of a previous iteration of the Earth Sciences and Paleo Interest Group or hasn't attended one of our meetings before. I figured we'd have some new people. Yeah, that's great. Thanks for joining us. Oh, I'm assuming it read your hand. Yeah. Everybody in for quarterly meetings? Great. Ben, can you explain the east-west thing? You had specific regions that you were saying that covers.
So sure. So this is sort of a thing we tried to do more in TADWIG where we have one that would take place. The East meeting would be at 9, 10 a.m. Eastern time, and that would cover East Coast Central Time and then Europe, Central European Time. And then there's one late day, which is like about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, or maybe sometimes 7 o'clock Eastern Time, which then covers California and then Australia. That's the idea. Or Mountain Time Zone, things like this, if you're in Colorado. So that's the general idea. So every meeting will be two partitioned. You'll see East or West and then different times. That's the idea. You're welcome to come to both if you really are enthusiastic about earth sciences and paleobiology, but it'll generally be the same content, same sort of things.
And we'll try to make sure we have good notes that cross between the two groups so that you don't miss anything that happens in the conversation of both. Yeah, go for it.
So is there like a, like our GitHub for paleo data or anything? Like, is there a place where all of these recordings and notes and things will live?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So we have a Google Drive folder and we do have a GitHub space. So we, as part of us rebooting the interest group, I think Ben and I have a little bit of work to do to clean up what those digital spaces are for the group. Actually, I'm just gonna reshare the slides because I should have shown this one and then. So ways of participating and related to that, if you add your information and your email address to the Google Doc, then we'll make sure that you get the notifications for any future meetings. You can attend meetings or any other work or updates that come from the interest group. There's also this channel within the Tadwig Slack space. So I think that's also a really good place to keep an eye on for any information flow or posting of meeting notes. We do have the GitHub, but it needs to be kind of renovated, rebooted. It's got a lot of good conversations already in the issues as they are, but they're quite old at this point. And there's a lot of parallel efforts that we're going to talk about shortly that are addressing some of the conversations that we're having in those GitHub issues. So I wouldn't focus too much on looking at them yet. But we do want to be able to utilize that space for work from the interest group moving forward. And then, like I said, there's a lot of other parallel efforts. We're sure that some of you have some, and I'm hoping that you will on the spot decide to chime in today. But joining those also means that you're contributing to what we're trying to do within this interest group in Tadwig as well. Does anybody have issues using Google Docs? That's an important question also. I know some places block it. No one at least that's here. Okay, well, maybe we'll move forward with the updates on the parallel efforts. And then if you have questions as we go, please chime in. And also, like I said, we have some we already know about, but for me, one of the really big things about this interest group that I'm hoping we'll be able to do is really having alignment and information sharing across all these different initiatives that we're all part of. So we're not reinventing the wheel, or we're able to build off of each other's work, and also using this interest group and Tadwig as a way to push some of that work forward. I know it's really easy to have a lot of conversations about how we should be doing things, but if we can formalize any of that within Tadwig in this interest group, we would love to be able to help with that. Yep. So with that, you get my screen again. So these are the ones that we know we're talking about today. And if you want to chime in at the end with anything else, again, please do. Over to you, Ben.
Okay. The mineralogy extension is very close. We have the preliminary set of terms done. They will be up in a documentation page similar to other Tadwig documentation page today or tomorrow. I have them up. I just got to clean some stuff up. And so the next stage of that will be the implementation feature report. One thing we've encountered, which sort of not totally anticipating, is that when something at this point, when something like Latimer core or Humboldt core goes out, within Tadwig, there's a foundation of knowledge in biology, the existing things, right, that you can sort of work off of when evaluating it. With a lot of mineralogy terms, there's not. And so a lot of the explanations, we really have to do a very, very detailed, thorough job about justifying and explaining all the things that are in the mineralogy extension. And we knew we'd have to do that, but not to the extent that we should have realized. And so we're going to have, I've got a trip planned and some other activities are going to take place in June to make sure that we've got a detailed examples and proof and implementation, things like that, that'll come out. And that's very, very important. The mineralogy extension also will support both existing Darwin Core and Darwin Core DP. There's an iteration that's adopting that. And so these will all sort of coincide with one another and fit all together. The eventual package will be the terms, both Darwin Core and Darwin Core DP version, the mapping to EFG, and then feature implementation report. And then we also have some controlled value lists that we're trying to put together for this to accompany it as well. We're getting there. There's some existing ones out there. There's an idea that we'd have habit as a vocabulary. It's turning out to be sort of more complicated than I think we anticipated. A lot of different types of habits and things. But we certainly want to do that and have those released as part of the repository as well. So that's the status of that one. Oh, and the roadmap. So the reason, actually, you want to go to the next slide real quick? The Venn diagram. There we go. So this is not to scale. This is just for illustrative purposes. But if you imagine geology as being this big area, paleontology has overlap with biology for taxonomy. Mineralogy resides in a separate sort of exclusive area of the geology domain. These can be thought of as end members to geology, sort of paleontology and mineralogy on the other with minimal overlap. The idea is that once you tackle these two in place, the overarching geology extension becomes much easier to do, much more straightforward. This compartmentalized approach was done intentionally to sort of ease, instead of trying to bite off everything at once, trying to put these things together as pieces to sort of construct one big overarching extension for geology. That's sort of the idea. And that's coming soon. So mineralogy is ratified first, and then geology comes next. Oh, and there's some links. So we have these master sheets where you can see the master sheets have all kinds of explanations and glossary and references and all kinds of things. The draft term sheet is now up in the mineralogy repository. There will be a actually here you'll see. So in fact, it just right before the meeting. If you'll indulge me for just a second, I'm fairly excited about this because I just got it working. Humor me for a minute. This is it. Let's go introduction. So you'll
Do you
see
want to
that.
share your screen?
That's what I'm doing, right? Can you see it or no?
I only see mine. I don't know.
Okay, hold on.
I could. Oh, I
What?
saw yours for a bit then, and then it went
Okay.
away, and Holly's came back.
Now you go.
All right. So this is it. This orange, I'm not totally married to it. I want to do Wolfenite, and I got an orange from Wolfenite. But anyway, so this is it. There's obviously some missing areas, the abstract, the contributors. Well, I'll get there. I just want to get this up because I think this is much easier to digest than a CSV file to get a repository. And you'll find some of these terms do cross over to other areas, things like hazard. Botany is big on hazard. You have toxic plants and things, how that all works out. So there's certain topics that will go into other disciplines. Some of them, though, will be very exclusively into mineralogy. A lot of the, another thing, material assertions. This was observed properties. We've changed this to match Darwin Core DP, and Darwin Core DP things are assertions like measurement of facts. And so there are some terminology that have recently added to sort of go along with that. They're all material assertions, so they're all sort of physical properties of things. And this will eventually be a vocabulary, not necessarily part of a terms list, but that's down the road. So there may be some things in there for that, but that's about it. And then we've got, for example, you'll see geologic context. This does not omit the existing Darwin Core geologic context terms. These are additional ones. These are new ones being proposed being added to it. So I'm still trying to figure out, like we've got one term to add to chronometric age. I'm still trying to figure out, do I want to include all the applicable terms in chronometric age on this term list, the sort of borrowed terms? I'm not totally sure yet. I need to ask some people about that, what their thoughts are. But that's kind of the idea that we're adding an event to it. And that's really about it.
And you have another mineralogy extension working group meeting, right?
Today.
Working
Yes, today at 4 o'clock Eastern. You're still welcome to register for that too. Any questions?
So that task group, as evidenced by them having their own working session meetings, is quite active. I know some of you are already part of it, but if you're not, go to the working session.
Well, Rachel Walcott is the co-convener. Rachel, you have anything you want to say, or you just everybody?
No, I'm very impressed with what you got up to in the last hour. No, well done.
Yeah,
We're getting there.
We had our Eastern this morning at 9 a.m. and I didn't have it ready. And then right after the meeting, I went and did it. I finally got it.
You didn't answer my email.
So
Great, thanks, Ben.
sure.
Okay. I'm gonna go next. So another parallel effort. I have three to cover with the help of Erica and Talia if she's around and wants to. So one that you may have heard about if you've been around before is the Paleo Data Working Group. So this is a very informal group that's not really associated with any parent organization, although we do a lot of things to push work through TADWIG, through the Earth Sciences and Paleo Interest Group. It's really a community of practice. Where we get together in the paleo collections community primarily just to compare notes, share information, do a lot of co-working to create new solutions for improving paleo data. Erica, do you want to add anything to that? Erica and Talia and Lindsay Walker and I are the primary people helping to continue that group, but there's a lot of people that really make it happen just by participating and attending and regularly hosting our bi-weekly happy hour meetings. So anyone here is welcome to join us in the Paleo Data Working Group. We meet every other Thursday. This coming Thursday is one of those meetings. It is at noon Eastern, so might be challenging for some people. We also have a separate Slack for this. If you're interested in joining the Paleo Data Working Group Slack, please let us know. We'll send you the invite. And that it's a really active space. People come in and ask questions like, how do you do this with paleo data? And people are very happy to contribute. And there's also a link here at the bottom that you can visit for more information about some of the past topics that we've covered, and the work that we've been doing. Any other Pidwig people want to chime in?
I thought of something I do want to add. We have a happy hour Thursday this week, and it's an archivist working in the anthropology collections at CU Boulder. And so he'll be presenting kind of a case study of the intersection between archives and collections. We did another happy hour led by Jess, who's here, about her work at Yale, kind of related. And so those are the kind of topics we talk about. And we would love to have anyone that's not a regular participant join us.
And we don't always hit the topics that are super closely related to Tadwig, but they are often a through line of how we're using Darwin Core and paleo collections and what we can do to improve it. And as related to that, a spinoff from the Paleo Data Working Group, Erica, Talia Cream, Lindsay Walker, and I are currently working on an NSF grant project from the Geo Open Science Ecosystem Program called Community Driven Enhancement of Information Ecosystems for the Discovery and Use of Paleontological Specimen Data. And this grant is largely a community building and information gathering project to help us build out a plan for improving discovery of paleontological specimen data. But it also does a lot to build upon the conversations and work that the Paleo Data Working Group has done over the past 5 years. So that is a grant shared between the University of Colorado Boulder, the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History, and the University of Kansas Symbiota Support Hub. But we are doing a lot, like I said, of work with Tadwig, with GBIF, with Catalog of Life, and other groups. So the grant is intending to result in a few deliverables that are relevant both to that very specific paleo collections community, but I also think very relevant to all of you and what we're doing within Tadwig and with the Earth Science and Paleo Interest Group. One of the main ones being this paleo roadmap. So what that is going to be is some version of a document that really outlines actionable technical requirements and recommendations that we're putting out to different cyber infrastructure partners in our kind of data ecosystem to help better support paleo data. So for example, one thing within the Tadwig domain would be recommendations about Darwin Core in this kind of larger geology plan that Ben was explaining in the paleo specific portion of that. We also are going to be building out a knowledge hub in GitHub that is a place to help share resources and have some shared knowledge management. And I think that again would be highly relevant and connected to anything that the Earth Science and Paleo Interest Group is doing. And then also one of the things to keep your eye on is we'll be launching a Symbiota portal specifically for paleo collections and are doing some improvements with Symbiota so that it better supports paleo collections, giving a new mobilization platform and data management system to collections that maybe don't have that capability or the resources to be able to do that as it stands right now. Erica, do you want to add anything for that part?
No, maybe just like a higher, like circling back to Holly's intro. This is the kind of project that we see as like for the quarterly ESP task group meetings, like, oh, it's useful for us to share what we're doing in case anybody else here is working on things that are aligned, or so you know that what we're doing, because this is a grant, and so there are named people that are participating, but we don't want it to be a totally closed off like body of work. So yeah, like in the future, we hope that if you're working on a similar kind of grant, you might bring that to this task group quarterly meeting and share out what you've been working on.
Yeah, and really specifically for our project, also the idea of this is to try to get really gain an understanding of what all the variety of activities are and the systems that people are using for paleo data. So we definitely welcome feedback and input and participation from other people. So if you're interested in learning more about this, let us know. Okay, that's the end of the slides, but then do you want to cover any of the other three that are on here? Oh, I forgot about the catalog of life part too, but I will let you answer the question I asked you first.
So CTEF is a group in Europe that meets similar to the interest group here for ESP. They have activities going on and different topics to discuss. Rachel knows, and it's more of a parallel effort and certain priorities and things like this, just as sort of to make sure that those two groups are aligned, because there are things that come up in those meetings. Somebody was working on vocabulary in a country, and they wanted to get more of the word out there. So in a way, it's almost like a conduit as well, and plugging the conduit into a conduit seemed like an effective communication platform. Cesar 2, this is the IGSN numbers. They have a new data model being released and a new portal. It's coming out very soon. The data model's done. The developers are still working with the data architect on how to implement the model for the web interface. And there's some interesting discussions going on with that. Obviously, Pidwig, here's the thing about Pidwig. I am a little biased toward this, and I happen to like people that run it. Here's the thing. It's really good. You really ought to go to it if you have a chance. Just one of them or two of them, just to see how it is. It's used like almost now as an example by other groups that are submitting charters and things about modeling themselves after Pidwig. It's really good. I realize I'm biased, but really, it's a good thing. iSamples, it's another effort similar. It's a data standard that has geosciences vocabularies as part of it, whereas Darwin Core initially admitted some of these sort of controlled value things to get data in. iSamples is a bit broader of a standard, but includes these vocabularies. And so I want to make sure that those vocabularies are getting published, make it their way over to other areas and other similar efforts like this one for use in examinations. That's all.
Thanks, Ben.
Sure.
And then the Catalog of Life Paleo Working Group. So this is a very in its early stages of being a thing. But over the last year, as part of that grant project that I covered, we've been working very closely with Catalog of Life to try to get better integration of fossil taxonomy into the Catalog of Life system. So that's gonna, towards the end of this calendar year, formalize into a paleo working group so that we can really channel expertise and effort around curating taxonomic data for fossils within the Catalog of Life. So if you're particularly interested in fossil taxonomy, please let me know, because we need more expertise for that. So those are our things that we know about, but would anyone else like to share other things that are going on in the community more broadly? Or do you have questions about any of the things that we just very quickly information dumped at you? Yeah, go for it, Rachel.
Yeah, I'll tell you why I'm here, and it's also because of Paleo Data Working Group. As you know, I came and I talked to you guys, and I was super impressed with the ground roots applicability of everything you do, and the way that you were keeping records of past meetings and discussions and all that. And I was kind of hoping that this group might be a broader version of that. I mean, I know a lot of what you do in PBW, whatever it is, actually it does have broader applicability, but yeah, so I was kind of hoping that maybe it might be an invitation with somebody that spans all the fields, a bit like you do in PBDB, PB whatever, and then have the same structure. So I was thinking, for example, I don't know if anyone's here. Oh, like the Discover project in Leiden. You know Wouter Addink's Discover project? I don't think anyone's from here. They're doing really interesting things about developing a portal for the broader natural sciences, but it applies their interest in the geosciences as well, and with annotation of data, having software for that. And they just heard this morning, because Wouter was at our Minex meeting, that they also have some label reading software which they're testing. So these are tools that apply to all collections, but might be a nice way of starting off our discussion group. So that would be Wouter Addingt, who I'm sure you know.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I think nothing stops us from having additional meetings for information distribution and discussion in between those quarterly ones, right? If something comes up and we want to bring it to this interest group, if anybody wants to bring it to this interest group, please let us know and we can help facilitate that.
Right.
I think one of the things that I wasn't sure about how to balance with the Tadwig interest group in particular is being able to do the big picture conversation about many different things and the community of practice kind of model and the scope of Tadwig. But I mean, that doesn't mean we can't cover it. I just finding the right balance, I think, will be a good thing for this interest group.
Yes, questions, thoughts, concerns, critiques?
I can just start asking people questions. I'm curious who here is more earth sciences leaning or paleo leaning. So maybe we can do a +1 in the chat if you're on the earth sciences side, and +2 in the chat if you are paleo. Or 3 if you're both. Cool. We got a pretty even distribution, it looks like.
I got a ringer at the
Thank
end
you.
with Adam.
What'd you say?
I got a ringer at the end with Adam. It's like 3 of us.
Adam snuck in. Adam's also part of the grant project and the mineralogy extension. And eye samples. Are people like hankering for more than quarterly meetings?
What
Kinda
about
feel that.
having a list of people that we could invite or something?
Yeah.
And then just seeing how the ball falls. Another thing I've been working on just while we've got this group is a version of bionomia, but represents geonomia. And I think it's a grant that we could work with. And I have a volunteer working with me building a geonomia database, but for our collection, but as just a proof of concept that one day somehow might be extended. But this is just the kind of group that it could come from.
For sure. So with geonomia, is that largely because the source for bionomia is GBIF, which doesn't really have geology collections? Okay. But still trying to disambiguate collector names and
Absolutely, all that, and even adding them to Wikidata. And also more on the mineralogy side, you're dealing with dealers more than sort of field collections. So we have a different kind of collector as well.
That's interesting.
I have a particular interest in the labels associated with dealers, which again is more of a mineral thing than a bio thing.
That's cool. We don't actually have to keep you here for an hour, but I wanted to make sure everybody has space to say whatever they want to say. Or if you have, again, if you have questions, if you have general questions about Tadwig, there's also a decent number of people here that can help answer those.
Regardless, it's nice that this group is meeting again, and like at least we can start talking and communicating and getting Paleo more involved in the Tadwig community. So good job, Holly and Ben.
We'll get there.
I just wanted to say that there is the Earth Science Information Partners Physical Samples Cluster is actually meeting later today. So, and I don't think there's any overlap, or at least not the last time I was at a physical samples cluster meeting. So I can mention that this is happening. And we can see if anyone else is interested in like cross-pollination.
Yeah, please do. I feel like we had a little bit of a almost connection maybe last time this interest group met in like 2022. So it would be really great to rebuild that. And you're the perfect person for it, Adam.
That's right, because I sometimes attend both meetings, but usually don't.
Thank you. And then I know I've already said versions of this 100 times already today, but one of the slides I typically like to put up for people is one with like tons of logos on it, just to be a little overwhelming of all the things that you have to keep up with if you want to be knowledgeable about what's going on in our larger global community. So again, I think this can be a good resource where you don't have to keep up with every single thing because we will do it together. So definitely think about for the next meeting in a couple months if there's some project that you think could be relevant that you'd like to update the group on.
I think this is within Tadwig too. So there are other areas of other standards and efforts within Tadwig that you're curious about from a geoscience perspective, how things fit in and how things sort of function from that. This would be a good group to get those questions through as well, the feedback.
So another question that I actually have for the group that I think will help us both with getting the GitHub repository rebooted, and something that we're working on within the Paleo Grant project, is how much people would be interested in more conversations about implementation of Darwin Core or some of the other Tadwig standards. I know you have very specific versions of that happening with the building of the mineralogy extension, but more generally for this interest group, that's another thing I think we could spend quite a bit of time on, if people are interested. And you'll find if you do go look at the GitHub that a lot of the issues are discussions about specific Darwin Core terms and how we should be using them or improving like the examples in the quick reference guide and the definitions. We will also be sure to send notifications to this group anytime there's a Darwin Core review or there's currently a taxon concept review going on, that has particular relevance to earth science and paleo.
Can I say something? This is John.
Oh, yes. Hi.
I'm on my phone and I haven't figured out how to raise my hand, so I'm being rude instead. I have an interest, and that is when the current Darwin Core review is done, we're going to switch gears into a next big, giant Darwin Core review that will start in September. And for that, what I would like is from this group a use case that states something that Darwin Core, as it currently stands, can't handle. And to be able to document the solution to that problem in the Darwin Core data package. Without going too much into what a Darwin Core data package is, it's basically removes the restrictions that Darwin Core as a Darwin Core archive has right now. And so that means all kinds of good things for paleo could be possible. For example, saying that things are material things are parts of other material things, and each of them can be cataloged or not, and you have relationships between them. So that's one thing that I would like to demonstrate and specifically include in a guide. So we have, for example, a Darwin Core archive guide. It's called the Darwin Core text guide, and it's a technical document really about how to do things in a Darwin Core archive. For Darwin Core data package, we want to have recipes that say, if you've got this kind of data, here's an example. Here's how you would do it. And a paleo one that is something of interest from this group would be ideal to include. So if you can think about what kind of examples would be good to have, how to do fun things that you can't do in Darwin Core right now, that would be awesome.
That sounds
Holly,
great.
yeah, I was going to say, I think that might be a good thing to bring up at PIDWIG too, because VP is going to be a little different than IP, which is going to be a little bit different than paleobotany, which is going to be different than the microfossils or the ichnofossils. So yeah, I like that.
Is it the use cases you would want in preparation for starting that in September?
If we can have them in the guide that goes to public review, that would be fantastic.
Okay.
The guide itself can evolve over time, but we need to present one. And the more communities we can cover with it, the better.
Great. Good to know. Thank you.
Welcome.
Well, I think I might, unless anybody has a last minute thought to share, I might end our session early. Give you some time back in your day. Everybody needs that. Okay, well, thank you for joining. We promise we won't say we're gonna have quarterly meetings and then go dormant again. It's really happening. So we will see you again in a few months. And in the meantime, if you want to be in touch, you can reach out over email or the Slack, where we both are around.
Thanks, Ben and Holly.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.